Welcome to TV Glimpse. In this recap, The Crown, Season 1. If you want to watch the rest of The Crown recaps, click here. In Season 1, Princess Elizabeth is engaged to Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten. King George VI gives Philip his royal title, ahead of the marriage to his daughter and heir of the throne, Elizabeth. The wedding is held at Westminster Abbey in great ceremony, and the princess vows to obey her consort, to much controversy. The royal couple have 2 children. Winston Churchill is elected Prime Minister for the second time, with George in ill health. Elizabeth and Philip tour the Commonwealth in his place, making their first stop in Nairobi, Kenya. Several cabinet members expressed growing concerns over Churchill's ability to govern, prompting Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary Tommy Lascelles to ask George if he can persuade Churchill to step down. But King George declines, stating that Churchill will step down when the right time comes. After an evening spent singing with youngest daughter Margaret and watching a news report on Elizabeth and Philip's arrival in Kenya, King George dies in his sleep. The news spreads around the world after his body is discovered the following morning. The country is in shock because even his doctors didn't think the end was so near. The late king, known as Bertie to his family, was a symbol of unity and continuity to the country. At the time of her father's death, Princess Elizabeth, now Queen, is traveling in Kenya, so the trip is cut short, and Elizabeth and her husband return to London for the funeral. Members of the royal family also returned to London for King George's funeral, including the king's brother, the Duke of Windsor, who abdicated as King Edward VIII in 1936 in order to be able to marry Wallis Warfield Simpson, whose 2 previous marriages had ended in divorce. Queen Elizabeth starts planning her coronation, but Churchill asks her to push it back to June 1953. In return of this favor, she asks the Prime Minister, who was 78 at the time, to help her convince the cabinet to let her name her children Mountbatten Windsor after her consort's name, but the cabinet refuses, and she is forced to maintain the name Windsor for her heirs and the descendants. On December of 1952, a great smog forms over London, reducing visibility, killing thousands and hospitalizing thousands more. Elizabeth's advisors pressure her to ask Churchill, who refers to the event as an act of God, to step down. Reluctant, Elizabeth summons him for a private audience after he has come under fire for refusing to discuss the smog at cabinet. He later makes an impassioned speech, promising a longer-term approach to prevent future smog. Both the speech and the smog's sudden disappearance prompt Elizabeth to change her mind as Churchill arrives at the palace. Queen Mary, Elizabeth's grandmother, has died. The Duke of Windsor returns to London, only to be told he could not attend his niece's coronation. Philip is given the task of planning the ceremony and decides to have it televised. For the first time in history, millions of people in the UK and abroad will be able to watch the Queen take the royal oath. Elizabeth II was crowned on June 2, 1953, in a ceremony during which her consort, the Duke of Edinburgh, had to kneel in front of his queen and wife and pay homage. The Queen's sister, Margaret, asked for her permission to marry Group Captain Peter Townsend, whose previous marriage ended in divorce. Members of the royal household are opposed to it. The press reports the love affair and the public becomes fascinated with the couple. The Queen tells Princess Margaret she must wait until her 25th birthday because of the Royal Marriages Act. While Princess Margaret is in southern Rhodesia, Peter Townsend is sent to a post in Brussels. Churchill suffers a stroke, which inhibits his ability to govern and prompts Lord Salisbury to keep his element secret. Realizing that she did not receive a proper education growing up as a princess, she engages a private tutor to improve her studies, which helps her gain the courage to dress down both Churchill and Salisbury after Colville accidentally reveals their deception. Philip begins spending more time away from the palace, while Elizabeth begins spending time with her horse racing manager and friend. Churchill resigns and requests that Adeane replaces him as Prime Minister. Elizabeth finds herself torn. when the country is divided over Margaret's relationship with Townsend, with the public approving and officials from Parliament and the Church disapproving. Following advice from Edward, Elizabeth forbids and devastated Margaret from marrying Townsend, who then departs for Brussels. He then replaces Churchill as Prime Minister and becomes trapped in an escalating dispute with Egyptian President Nasser over the rights to the Suez Canal. Lascelles and the Queen Mother suggest that Elizabeth ask Philip to open the Summer Olympics in Melbourne, so that he can adjust to life in her shadow. Well, this is all for Season 1. If you want to watch all the recaps, click here. Thanks for watching TV Glimpse.